talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on that thought.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Rates. Geordies here, Geordies there, and I'm joined by George, Steve, Stu, Steve, Mitch and Al Walid. Good evening, lads.
Good evening, everyone.
Steve.
Good to see you. And as most of you know, who followed NUFC Matters over the years, we never plan a programme. It's just spontaneous. But Stu's just said before the show, he wanted to chuck a question in at the start. So, Stu, over to you.
Right, with Mr. Joelinton, our boy from Brazil, how he was rightly criticised for his poor performances when he's up front, but at the same time, equally, he should be lauded, praised for his magnificent performances in midfield, because it's now just a case of Joelinton plus who in midfield? Sorry, Joelinton plus who in midfield? Can anyone think of another player, whilst playing for Newcastle, who has had such a transformation? Now, I've asked Steve and Mitch this earlier in the week, and they were struggling because I haven't come back with an answer. Now, I can only think of one, so I'll leave it till later. But it genuinely is, it's once in a generation. So that shows the improvement that the players made and the coaching staff have done with them, and it's credit to everyone involved. But it's massive, isn't it? I said it last week. He's probably saved us 40-50 million quid in the summer with these performances. So yeah. Can anyone think of anyone else who's made such a massive change just by changing position, become such an invaluable player?
I've got to be honest, between me and Supermac and Gibbo on Thursday, we couldn't think of anybody off the top of our heads. You know, I mean, I think of plenty of players who've had positional changes, people who've started off in one position and then ended up being a better player elsewhere. I mean, Steve Howie probably springs to mind.
That's the one.
Yeah, Steve Howie springs to mind, and that's only after about 5 or 6 days thinking about it. You know, it was a positional change, but I can't think of anybody who's been monumentally, poor at Newcastle and turned it round to be
at Newcastle
a kingpin at Newcastle. I think the only other player that I came up with was John Dahl Thomason, who, of course, Newcastle was lambasted and criticised heavily. He came in at an awkward time when Shearer got injured and was asked to do a man's job in a boy's boots, and then went on to win the Champions League when he left Newcastle. So that was the one I came up with. But anybody else? Anybody else think of anybody?
Bob Stokoe.
Great story. What's the story behind that,
Bob
George?
Bob Stokoe was a very poor wing half or midfielder, as you call it these defensive midfielder. You call it these days, and. Looked like he was on his way to pastures new, and then suddenly we start losing centre halves. Brennan and others retired, lost their way. We tried replacements and we couldn't find. Patterson came from Doncaster and cost a fortune and was very quickly on his way to Scotland. And somebody else came in and went. And then suddenly somebody had the bright idea to try Bob Stokoe at centre half, and he was brilliant and never looked back.
Anybody
so
else?
Went from being very ordinary to yeah.
Well, I agree with you, Steve, because it took us ages to think about it. But Steve Howie, for those who watched the start of his career, he was, if we're being kind of below average centre forward in the Ordealers years. But then Keegan transformed him, obviously with Steve Howie's talent and commitment as well, but to an international class defender. But we're talking, 30 years ago now, or just under 30 years, so it shows you it's once in a generation. And when I mentioned to Mitch, the only other person I could think of was the person that you mentioned, John Dahl Thomason, but he didn't prove it at Newcastle. So that's why I wanted to ask the panel, with George and Steve a bit older, they might have thought of other players as well. But seriously, in my time, I've never seen anyone transform like this, from a caterpillar to a butterfly, like the way Joelinton has.
Roger put Luke de Jong was terrible for us, but ended up winning the Europa League.
That's the one I was thinking of.
If we're going to go on players that won the fans over, players who were a bit of a boo boy, I suppose you could look at Warren Barton to a certain extent.
Yeah,
because he got a fair bit of stick. Everybody's he gets worshipped now, and he's a bit of a cult hero. But at the time, Warren Barton went through the mill. It was in and out. came back.
There's a few done that, but again, without the positional change.
Yeah.
You know, I can think of players who'd done that, but
Yeah.
hadn't changed position. And I could think of quite a few players who changed position, but none that had been exponentially better once they took a new position. That was the bit I couldn't wrap my head around to think of. Once Stewart remained as a Steve Howie, that was me pretty much done.
Couple of good ones in the chat. Peter Hill says Bobby Shinton was rubbish when we signed him, but was subsequently transformed to being terrible. Mark Edward Browns is really good. He goes, Pavel, he was shocking when he first came. He used to drop every cross and played in, but became a great keeper, but obviously no positional change. I mean, that's a great shout because, of course, he came in with this continental way of goalkeeping, of punching the ball, wearing tracksuit bottoms, which I think a lot of people used to take the mick out of. You know, what the hell's he got them on for? He'd be coming out of the goal and like, you know, like the Keystone Cops, and people who would have their hearts in their mouths when he was trying to clear the ball. But, you know, he was probably a little bit too advanced for each times because, you know, essentially that's the way goalkeepers ended up having to play with a change in the rules, you know, with things being changed. So, yeah, Pavel's a really good shout, I think, as well. I can give another one now that I'm thinking off the top of my head. Somebody who was a player at Newcastle and did badly the first time and then came back and did well again was Mark McGee.
Mark McGee.
You know, he turned it right round. Yeah, he turned it right round. Anybody else? Any other names that spring to mind?
No.
Warren Barton was a good shout there, Steve, as well. Yeah, Pacino, says Simon Davies. James Perch, of course. You know, wasn't great at all, and then managed to find a place in the side and did really well, didn't he? Was poor in the Premier League. He did well in the Championship, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the position we're struggling with, isn't it? You know, there's plenty of players that have turned their career around, or, you know, turned the fans round and became sort of, in some instances, out of a situation of ridicule, you know, and it was a bit of a pee take that suddenly become, you know, oh, well, he becomes a cult hero. But it changes the hard bit. That's the really hard bit. And when Stewie sent that over, I was completely bamboozled. I just could not think of a positional change, and that's why I had to go for Barton in the end, purely as a player who now people look at and go, oh, he was brilliant, you know. The bit rose-coloured specs, but that was a bit of it.
Yeah, I think there's two players that come to mind that changed in different positions, like Steve Watson and Irvin Natris, that played differently and took a long time to settle in any particular. I think Irvin Natris did he play central midfield at one time, George, and then centre half, and then I think, was it fullback he ended up being?
He played all.
Irving Natris.
Yes. Well, he was
versatile, really.
Initially, an attacking midfielder, but
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah,
he was England class when he moved to right back, but the trouble is he's another one of these that got a bad knee injury, and that was the end of him.
Yeah, and Steve Watson, I suppose, as well. That you know, he varied positions. I don't even know what his best position was.
Well, Stephen was the sort of player, and he went to school the same time as Neil. Stephen was the sort of player who was a footballer, was versatile because he just loved football. You could have put Steve Watson in goal, and I've seen him in goal at school when he played at Burnside. I've even seen him in goal, and he looked like a great player there. It was him and Alan Thompson was another that played together. Tom was, a bit of a wild lad, but Stephen Watson just loved football and could have played anywhere on the pitch.
Yeah,
very well.
Done. Yeah, some good examples, plenty coming in the chat. Keep them coming in for us. George, just a quick one on last week's game. Another good result. We've got some big away games coming up now over the next couple of weeks, but it was nice to sign off with a win against a bogey team in Brighton. I think we were all fairly confident about how things were going to go. It was a lot tighter than we thought, but yeah, good win against Brighton.
Well, it was. It's amazing how everything about at the moment seems to be good. I mean, that was a game where Brighton had 68% of the possession. It's a game I think we would have lost another few months ago, but everybody was just resolute and kept at it. And I've got to say, when you Brazilian, when he came on, showed his value and his ability to keep the ball. and his ability to put the ball in safe places, as it were, and pen Brighton back a little bit, where we haven't always had that. But as I say, the big thing for me was, yes, it was a bit nervy at 2-1, but I never ever felt like we were going to lose it. You know, it just had a confidence that the way that Byrne and the other defenders were playing, Matty Target and others were just controlling things the way we wanted, and there was much of it to enjoy, and not just the game to enjoy and the result, but also everything around it. I mean, I thought, I don't know about the rest of you, but I thought War Flags excelled themselves at the weekend. What a fantastic display. When our stadium's like that, I don't think there's another stadium in the world that can beat it when we do something like that. And that's absolutely fantastic. And then later on, even the Wags, as they're calling, Newcastle Wags now get into the picture. All the girls, the new girls particularly, seem to have gelled and are going out together and having a good time together. And they seem to be led by Kieran Trippier's wife, who seems to have got them all into a sort of a nice little club where sometimes at the match they take their kids. If they're going out for a night, they don't always take their kids. That's all got to be good for the well-being of Newcastle United.
Yeah, it has. And I mean, Eddie Howe paid tribute to the Flags as well today in an interview with Andy Sixsmith on Premier League TV. Said it was unique and part of the club, which was fantastic to hear, wasn't it?
It was, and it is. Ever since they started, I've got to say, with War Flags, I've been thrilled by what they've done ever since they started. And that the previous owner, who was such an idiot to make life difficult for them. I mean, that's got to be better for everybody, but not for Mr. Ashley. Well, it's working well with us. The other thing, it was nice to see where co-owner Amanda getting out and talking publicly at events around the city. The sports writers' dinner and all that's collecting the award for San Maximum and all that sort of thing. The downside of that is that I've just seen in the last couple of days an absolute pretentious piece of tripe from True Faith trying to tear the woman apart. I mean, where did they get all this from? Who do they think they are? But never mind, I've no doubt they'll have a go at me now for me saying that. But it was absolutely unnecessary in my view, because it just was over the top. They could have said what they wanted to say in a paragraph, but they had to make a whole page of it. It just was nonsense for me. It was too much.
What was the general gist of it, George? Because I haven't seen it. I've got to be honest.
Well,
it's not something I read.
It was criticising Amanda for what she said about Chelsea and Abramovich, right? And she did stick her nose out a little bit for that one. I have to accept that, but then went on to compare the situation in Russia with the situation in Saudi Arabia, and which human rights were the worst, all of that sort of. I mean, it just was too much. I mean, one of the premises was about how in Saudi the women are treated and all the rest of it. For God's sake, the chief of our club at the moment is a woman. And it's the Saudis have allowed that to happen. If they hadn't wanted that to happen, they would have stopped it, and they've allowed it. So perhaps we're the vanguard and changing things, but they couldn't see that. It just was a pretentious piece of rubbish for me. Just somebody saying something.
Can I just interject here, because we're here to talk about Newcastle, and it seems like a geopolitical or a political broadcast, but Al Walid hopefully will substantiate what I'm going to say. Saudi Arabia, for the uninitiated, aren't at war with Yemen. They're at war with the Houthi rebels who are bombing them. If people are going to start commenting on it, get the facts right, look into it, and talk about it. If not, crack on with the Newcastle chat, because we're doing fantastic at the minute.
Absolutely. Well, as I say, I haven't highlighted all the good things that made me feel good. I feel it's only fair to add the odd one that I didn't.
George, you're entirely your opinion. Everyone's in. That's the beauty of football and sport in general. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and as we do know,
on the
sport and politics do cross
over. On the chat along the bottom, somebody said, asked me what was my best time at Newcastle United. Well, it's got to be the entertainers, that's it, and Kevin Keegan. But I have to
George,
say,
we haven't got to ask George yet. We haven't got to
No, no.
that bit yet.
well, I've been answering them all bloody day to day. So.
I did notice on Twitter, and they're now starting to transfer onto Twitter. Go on,
Anyway,
continue, George. Continue.
No, it just having said that, I've got to say that the feeling I have at the moment, and we're not top of the league, you know, but we're doing things right, we're doing things well, and it has the good feel that we had at about the time the entertainers set off, and I think we're on another journey. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a massively positive time to be a Newcastle fan, and as you say, we're at the start of a journey. We're at the start of the journey, and I'll knock two things into one here. First of all, thank you to Amanda and Mia Dad for inviting us up to the chairman's suite before the match at the weekend to get the T-shirt signed that we raised another great fee for the food bank. It was nice to get up there and see them and have a chat with them. Obviously, you know, myself, Steve Hasty, Mitch, John Woff spent many Zoom hours chatting to these two people about, you know, how things were going to develop, and you know, we built up a wonderful relationship with them over those couple of years, and it was nice to catch up with them and have a proper chat. Thanks to John as well from QTech for coming up with the idea of the T-shirts, which has raised thousands of pounds. And I'm delighted to say, going off on a political tangent briefly, which was what Stu did briefly, I'm pleased to say that we've managed to send over some much needed supplies to the people in the Ukraine. And there is young Poppy, John's daughter, packing the stuff up and sticking it into boxes. We've sent over a couple of £1,000 worth of supplies to the people in the Ukraine, much needed clothing and stuff on behalf of NUFC Matters and everybody in the chat. And we just want to thank everybody for supporting the show. We felt it was only right that we did our bit to try and help those people in the Ukraine. And thank you to Poppy for spending a weekend packing those boxes neatly, getting them taped up and sending them off. And I believe they made a brief appearance on Look North last night, those boxes. And I'm pleased to say they've arrived in the Ukraine. So that is fantastic. So great stuff. Thank you to everybody for their support. Steve Wilkinson, on to you, mate. Just tell us a little bit about the game at the weekend against Brighton. Who stood out for you? Who was your star man?
Yeah, well, I think it was a strange game because I think for the first 10 minutes we're well under the cosh, and Brighton probably could have been ahead in that time, but then all of a sudden we just clicked into gear, and we got the 2 goals quickly, and for a brief moment you thought we're going to just run away with it. The football, they were passing the ball around, and then Brighton got back into it. But I think it was interesting that I don't think the midfield were as much on fire, and I think that's epitomised by Shelby's comments about apologising for his performance, because while I don't think he was as good as he's been in recent times, he was significantly better than he's been for many times in the last however many years. But I think to come out with it just shows the change in the mental attitude the players have, that their own personal expectations are at the level that we're seeing, and the whole team is grafting, and nobody deserves to be left out. I thought Kraft played a lot better, probably his best game, I think, on Saturday. Certainly right at the end, they were just really getting stuck in, and we've now got a centre half pairing of Dan Burn and Sher that you forget how bad it was in the past, really, when you just see how composed the two of them are when they're defending, and again Matty Targett now a genuine left back for the first time in a long time. So I think it was it was an overall team performance that wasn't as good as it has been, but we ground out a result. And I think, as it's been said umpteen times, that had that been what even part of the time when in Eddie Howe's era, 2-1 up with all the pressure that Brighton put on the second half, we would have capitulated. But I think now you feel as though we can resist anything, and I'm confident that we'll come on to talking about the next few games coming up later on, I'm sure. But you feel confident that we're not going to get it stuffing anywhere, and there are points to be had in these next 4 games. But overall on Saturday, it was great to get the result, and I think onwards and upwards.
Yeah, Stu, it was good to see, again, just a solid performance from Fraser. He ran himself into the ground. It was great to see him being, nominated for being, Premier League Player of the Month. Obviously up there with Eddie Howe being nominated as Premier Manager of the Month. But yeah, he just a dimension, and his interviews have been great as well. He's been one of the most consistent performers, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think a lot of them have. I mean, Fraser, I know I'll get called being biased with the Scottish link, etc. But we all knew he was a good player. And the reason that he was lambasted was simply because what we talked about Joelinton before, it was the lack of performances or commitment or application on the pitch. But the way it's turned around, the way that he's favoured now, same as Shelby, you can group him in, the same as you can group Joelinton in. We will appreciate and support anyone who we see is given 100%. And the game at the weekend, it wasn't the prettiest. It wasn't our best performance, but for me, it was probably one of our most pleasing performances of the season because it showed that the players are willing to roll their sleeves up, get stuck in for each other. And do you know what? I didn't feel that we were going to concede the second goal. I felt comfortable that they had it. It's like they're in control. That it's okay. We've still won this. Whereas normally you'd be there, your backside be twitching like a rabbit's nose, wouldn't you think? Right, we're going to concede one, probably another one, and get beat. And it's this new assurance, and confidence that the team seem to have like blanketed over them, and it's a joy to watch. So sometimes even the best teams, if we look currently, the Chelsea's, Man City's, Liverpool's, they don't always win pretty, but they get the W at the end of the day. And that's what we did last week. And I was so pleased the way everyone grafted and stuck together. And that's why I didn't nominate Kraft. I said the fact that he was in contention, same with Joelinton. Two names I would never thought I would have put into contention for a man of the match over the last couple of years. But they both thoroughly deserved it, as did the rest of the players, to be fair. But because those have had stick in the past, in the fact that they've managed to brush themselves down, there's an old saying, they've brushed themselves down and they've got on with it. I was happy with it. But again, people still want to criticise that. But I don't care because I'm watching a team now that I know is only going one direction.
Steve, there seems to be an insistence on some supporters to try and find a bit of a, somebody, I wouldn't say a boo boy, but just... There always has to be somebody who's the patsy. There's always somebody who has to be somebody who didn't have a good game. And it just seems to be Murphy's turn this week. And I didn't think Murphy had a bad game, Steve, but no. Kraft previously was somebody, then Joelinton before this amazing turnaround. Sometimes why don't we just have a weekend where everyone goes, actually, that was a great team performance?
Yeah. I mean, Murphy was going to get stick because he was keeping ASM out the team. As simple as that. And I think he was on a hiding to nothing because there was a lot of people before the game were saying that ASM should come straight back in, etc., etc. I thought that in the first half, I thought Murphy had a great game. I was impressed with Kraft. The one that really, really impressed me was another one who's been, getting castigated for the previous 18 months, and that was Fraser. We mentioned right at the start about a player who has come from base level 0 to almost at the top of his game, and Fraser for me, sheer energy. We're actually seeing a player who was probably at his fittest that he's been for the last 18 months. I think, when we bought him, he'd had that 6-month spell out where he, during the lockdown where he refused to play because he didn't want to jeopardize the move that he was having. And then he arrived and missed the close season. We got him with a game, with a week to go, etc. So on Saturday, I thought Fraser was the outstanding player. What really impressed me about the game itself, I thought that we won dirty, we won ugly, we were up against it. I thought their two centre backs in Dunk and Duffy, I thought had tremendous games. I thought that Welbeck gave our two central defenders a game on his own. I was impressed by Trossard. I thought he was a player who is non-stop. All of these little things. Cucurella, the fullback, he was getting in people's faces. He was getting annoyed, and they had energy all over the pitch, and we contained them. And as you say, we never looked as though, I never felt as though we were going to lose it. I never felt as though we were going to lose that lead that we had. All in all, a very, very good game. A totally different game to what we've seen from Newcastle United over the previous couple of weeks. That, again, is good because we're seeing different transitions. We're seeing the midfield under pressure, and maybe that's why people are saying they felt as though they underperformed, or Shelby felt as though he underperformed. But it's all good. We won. We got 3 points, and we'll move on to tomorrow. And that's another conversation in terms of what Eddie Howe's going to do tomorrow. And I think that's the fascinating bit that's going to come moving on, because you know there were players that by the end of the game looked like they were out on their feet.
Yeah, great news from Steve Bennett, who we've covered on the show. His family have been reunited in Bulgaria, which is delightful news, Mitch, isn't it?
It's brilliant. Yeah. You know, he shared some of the WhatsApps that his missus was sending him intermittently when she could. And I have to say, he watched the match with us on Saturday, and even though he knew she was safe and he was still trying to sort a lot of things out, you could still see he was processing everything still. And it's been a hell of a journey, physically, mentally, spiritually for them probably too. I'm glad they're back together. I knew he was planning to get the girls over from Poland as well. So he's obviously managed to do that too. And good luck to them deciding on how they rebuild, because that's what they're now planning to do, is just where do they go from here. And he knows fine well the lads in Dubai have all got his back, and all of the NUFC Matters community have too. And it's nice of you to let me know, Steve, and enjoy your time to the max, please, mate.
Yeah. Talking of Dubai, any sightings of Shearer?
He's been up at Dubai Hills Golf Course today, apparently.
Right.
So he knows fine well that there's pint in Goodfellas tomorrow night. If he's watching the match, there'll be a few in Goodfellas tomorrow night. He knows where to find it. Come to the dark side, Mr. Shearer. You'll enjoy yourself.
Talking of another local lad, Mitch, Dan Byrne, what an impression he's made. Surely he must be close to an England call-up, Mitch.
He was immense at the weekend, and he's pretty much the reason why I was quite comfortable. And I was looking at thinking, I'm not going to get past him. He made 3 ridiculously good blocks. You know, at another level. But he looks calm. He looks assured. He's brought the best out of Cher. Cher's a different player alongside Byrne. He's the player that we know he can be. He's got the confidence to play the ball. Whether there's better communication between the two of them as well, don't know. But he seems to have a calming presence at the back. I think Dubravka looks less flappy as well. And there's got to be a reason for that. And that comes out of an assurance that your back four's going to do a lot more for you and protect you a lot more, perhaps. Because, to be fair, that was the Graham Potter second half. The changes he made and the overloads he was trying to create was proper School of Science football. You know, was really up there with good tactical coaches. That's the Potter that came to St James's and absolutely battered with 3-0 a couple of seasons ago, when we were 2-0. We were 2-0 down after 8 minutes or something like that, and they could have won that game by about 7 or 8. But we had the ability to change what we were doing, and the guts and the grit to grind it out. And you cannot fault them. You've just got to be happy about it, you know. And Steve talking about Murphy, that little chip that he put over the keeper that hit the post that thankfully Fraser put away, I reckon he puts them away all day long in training. The amount of times he keeps trying it in games, I reckon day in, day out in training, they go in the back of the net, and he's just not managed to do one in a match yet. I feel for him, I really do, because his work rate's superb. And again, if you come back to the measure of his stats about the tackles per 30 minutes is on the pitch, it's a crazy amount. You know, it's not just about what you do when you've got the ball, it's about who's doing what when we haven't got the ball. And that's the difference under Howe. It's what we're doing when we don't have the ball that makes me feel a lot more assured in the times when, okay, you can have 69% of the possession, but what are you going to do with it then? Eh? And that's almost what we're like, you know. You can tippy-tappy around with it in the middle of the park, you can go back to your centre of defence, you can come back out wide. It's almost like we play at times like a half-court press in basketball. and you say, right, you can have up to that line. That's all yours.
Yeah.
Go for it. The minute you come into our bit, you're in trouble. We're going to hassle you. We're going to harass you. We're going to make it difficult for you. And that's what it looks like to me. And it's that kind of mentality where it's a bend and do not break. You know, some American football teams play that with their defence. They'll give you yardage away and they're happy to give little bits, but when it really matters, the line holds firm. And I can't remember the last time I felt so confident in a back four.
Me neither.
No.
To be honest with you, it sounds almost arrogant. I know some people from other clubs might listen to us saying, you know, oh, I never really felt in danger, but genuinely, I felt very, very comfortable at 2-1. And I never feel comfortable at 2-1. It's a horrible score.
Neil, I think when Trippier's fit, with Trippier, Byrne and Target, we could have the England back three.
Yeah, I genuinely believe the same.
For what they've negotiated for Target, by the way, if it's true that it's 15 million less the amount they've already paid in loan fee, that is a steal.
Absolutely.
For someone who is a 7.5, 8 out of 10 every bloody game, solid. Again, when did we last have a left back that looked that solid?
Mm-hmm.
I tell you what's interesting. Just to put in there, you talk about Dan Burn. We're lucky enough to sit probably level in the first half with the 18-yard box, just a little bit further, which is perfect for when you're watching Dan Burn when he's trying to get the team to step out. But he doesn't just step out. He comes along. He tracks sideways as well, and he's continuously talking to his fullbacks and to Shaw, and he leaves Shaw to organise himself. And he's the man. He's taken on that leader, that role, that responsibility. You watch him. He steps forwards at least 5 yards further than anyone else, and then they spot it and they move with him. And then he steps along and he steps, depending on which way. His organisational skills are absolutely brilliant. Whether that's come naturally or whether that's something he's working on the training pitch with Howe and with the rest of the coaching team, and obviously with the remaining back three that he's playing alongside. But it's great to watch, because when it was Lascelles, it was a step forward and that was it. Or sometimes it wasn't even a step forward; it was a step back. And he was as though he was scared about the ball coming over the top, and whether that was to do with whoever was behind him in goal or whatever. But there's a distinct change between him and what you're seeing with Lascelles at the back, and it's fascinating to watch. It's great. It's really, really good. And we've got a leader there. We've got a guy who is leading from the front, and I wonder where that's going to head. And I'm sure we'll cover that there when we talk about tomorrow's game.
Albalid, good to see you, mate. First question first. How is the baby?
Yeah, she's great. And it's funny, though. People ask me on Twitter, they think it's first baby. I don't know why. They always ask me, how does it feel like you're a father? I am a father since 10 years. It's not my first child, but people assume that it's my first. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, that's good, mate. Good stuff. Sending our love as always.
Yeah.
Just give us your views on Newcastle's performance last weekend, and how it's gone down in Saudi Arabia.
Actually, it's the thing. I noticed that other teams doesn't know how to play against Newcastle. It's like Newcastle have a new identity. It's like every team trying to do something, or we see Southampton coaches still whining about the new players, and this is really make me happy. Actually, I want to see Chelsea game. I am very excited for, because this is actually, I think it's the real test, or the real deal. Also, I like two things from the last game, which was we scored 2 early goals, and we didn't concede a goal quickly. This is, I don't remember last time this has happened. And the most important part likes to what he said about when we concede a goal, we still hold. We didn't be shaky like usual before. We become steady game, continue steady game, and always in Premier League, if this goal happens when you score 2 goals, a draw or maybe a comeback happen. But this has not happened this time. It's like solid team. and we still, without mentioning any names, I don't want to make anyone upset, but I'm really assuming a lot better player to come.
Yeah, it's been a great time to be a Newcastle fan. And I think going to Saudi Arabia, Al-Walid, seemed to have done the trick. That little bit of, sun on the back of the players and a bit of team bonding certainly seemed to help. And there's talk of them potentially going back over very soon.
Actually, the sun was the key. And a lot of people ask me how you meet the players and all with the security. I found some spot under the sun. It's unguarded. So the players like the sun. But as I understand, maybe they will going to Dubai. I'm not really sure. Not Saudi Arabia this time.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, halfway through the program, a couple of questions coming in for Ask George. I've got to run through the ads though before we come to that. So a big thank you, as always, to our sponsors, Spider VPN, for all your internet security. Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of the Google search list. They are the boys to trust for protecting your computer. Thanks also to skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks also to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 0191 389 7245. And to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks also to Arcot Interiors for all your kitchen necessities. You can find them on Heaton Road or Google them. They come up at the top of the Google search list. Also, Arcot Interiors. Thanks also to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. And, of course, the lads who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. Thanks also to Clearun Game, Kai, which is available on Apple Store and Google Play. Meet the new Game Over screen drop into a Clearun device near you. Thanks to Jab Signature, jabsignature.co.uk, and to Media Arts for all our video work. If you want to subscribe to the channel, please do. You hit the subscribe button. It's as simple as that, which is the Newcastle Legends logo. If you hover over that with your mouse, you should be able to find it. I've been told by John today from QTech that if you're watching it on your phone, it's probably best to wait until the program finishes, and then before you close the app, go back onto the channel and then subscribe. It can help join, because some of you will get notifications then of when the shows come up. Hit the like button, which is the little thumb under the video, to show your pleasure for the show, and drop into the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans or to leave a comment for the people on screen. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. Simply go to those podcast providers and type in NUFC Matters. It usually goes up within 24 hours of the show. If you want to become a cult member, then you will get a pen, a cup, a scarf, and a membership card, and you will go into the monthly draw. Go to NUFCmatters.com and join up. It's a one-off payment fee and well worth joining. You can also hover your phone, if you're not watching the show on your phone, over the QR code, and that will take you straight to the membership pack area. We also support the food bank on this channel. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is where you go to make a virtual donation. And with there being no home games for a couple of weeks, it's valuable for the food bank if you go to that and use that to drop in some money. So NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk. It is open 365 days of the year. Please make a donation today. Last chance to get your Pickford t-shirts as well before that big match. NUFCmatters.com. They are on sale on there, along with loads of other goodies. And I do want to give a quick plug to the shirt, which caused so much controversy, which is at the top of my Twitter, at Steve Wraith. Get your bids in for that. I think it was currently at £150 for the food bank. All proceeds go to the food bank for that one. At Steve Wraith on Twitter. Give us a follow. And the Shearer dinner, of course, 260dinner.co.uk. If you want to come to that. The Sponsors Lounge is now sold out. So all 90 tickets for the Sponsors Lounge have gone. But we are giving people a chance to enter a raffle, which will be drawn live on the Three Amigos on Friday. So for the 260 dinner, simply go to NUFCmatters.com. You can buy a raffle ticket for $9.99 and you can win a pair of tickets worth £520. And it's a great opportunity to win two great tickets to a great event. So get yourself along. if you can, by going to the website 260dinner.co.uk. But if you want to just have a flutter and give yourself a 1 in 99 chance of winning, go to nufcmatters.com and pay for a ticket. And don't forget as well, we do other stuff on this channel. Straight after this show, I'm going straight into a News of the World show. And we're going to be talking about the war, the Ukraine war. I've got some special guests on, as always. Patricia Devlin, myself, Lee Davies will be on the show with a couple of other panelists. So jump on there, 7 until 8. And tomorrow, I'm doing a show with another former criminal, Steve Armstrong, aka Cookie. That will be live tomorrow night after Supermac and Gibbo. That will be at 7 o'clock until 8 o'clock. So well worth hitting the subscribe button and watching what we've got coming ahead on this channel over the next 48 hours. Okay. Time for one of our regular sections on here. And of course, it is Ask George. Okay, George, I'm going to go for 2 questions. After all the stress and nightmare he's had, I'm going to let Steve Bennett have this one. So I know you'll have a short answer to this one. The friendliest away ground you have visited and the most hostile, George?
Friendliest has got to be... just might be happened to be a friendly the day I went, but I enjoyed the last time I was at Hillsborough when Sheffield Wednesday was still a big football club, and I thought the people there were fantastic and very helpful, very accommodating to Newcastle fans, and very friendly indeed. It was kind of special for me because at that time I was county commissioner for Scouts in Durham, and the county commissioner for Scouts in South Yorkshire happened to be a director of Sheffield Wednesday, so he made it quite pleasurable as well. But the whole atmosphere at Sheffield on that particular day was fantastic.
Most hostile, then, George. Most hostile.
Most hostile. Winners, easy West Ham. I can't remember a time going anywhere where I felt so uncomfortable as going to West Ham. I've not been a lot, but the times I've been, Neil knows, I've always felt threatened. Even the walk from the tube to the ground, you're going to get pelted with bottles of pee and all that sort of thing, and even the coppers are going to have a kick at you. It really, West Ham not my favourite ground at all. Of course, I've never been to the new ground, the one that they got. They're getting nearly rent free off the Tory party, but never mind. But West Ham, the most hostile. I've never felt comfortable at West Ham.
Okay, Tom Dixon says, ask George, what was the best cup run that you have watched with Newcastle United?
Oh, it had to be, because I knew more about it. The earlier 51s, it was exciting, but I wasn't, I didn't follow it as closely. But by the 55 one, yes, I was old enough to understand what was happening, and I think the 55 run, cup run, when we actually went and won the cup, was fantastic, and that brought out lots of things. In the final, it showed how versatile Jackie Milburn was. We had Vic Keeble as centre forward. Manchester City were got a corner, and the Manchester City defenders were all around Keeble because he had the reputation of being a good header of the ball, and they left Milburn on his own. So the ball was just chipped to Milburn, and what did he do? He headed it straight in, and he was playing, totally out of position. He was inside right, we'd call it, but midfield these days. But yeah, the 55 cup run takes some beating.
Yeah, great stuff.
I'm looking forward to the next one.
Me too. Okay, now obviously I've had a lot on my mind with my mum, and I've forgotten on this show that we do a couple of other segments, so I'm going to cram these two in before we look ahead to the game tomorrow night. Big thank you to Mick Rayner. The whole point of this show is Geordie's here, Geordie's there, and Mick sent us in some fantastic photographs. There is Mick, just so you've all put a name to the face, wearing his Newcastle United shirt. and he's from Perth in Australia. So he sent us a photo of his son, showing that you can still get brown ale out there. He was obviously on the Kronenberg, and he was on the brown ale. A nice picture of the bottles and the old McEwen's glass as well. And there is the view from his house.
Wow, fantastic that.
Very nice, and a Newcastle shirt in the foreground as well. So fantastic, Mick. Thank you very much for sending that. And those of you who remember the very first show will, of course, remember that I put up a photograph of a Geordie as a youngster, and the lads had to try and guess who it was. So I've dug up another one, lads. Who is this?
Silence.
That's Sting.
Well done, Steve Hasty.
Cheers.
Absolute classic. Sting from the Police, of course, and a big Newcastle United supporter. Well done, Steve Hasty. Whenever it's music, you can tell Steve's...
Wolves End, you see? Wolves End.
Steve's on the ball. Steve's on the ball.
I mean,
that's all.
His song, "The Fields of Gold," I only live 200 yards from the actual field he wrote it about.
Okay, good stuff. Right, Al-Walid, we're going to start with you. We're going to look ahead to the Southampton game. Good old Ralph has been on full form again today. If he's not complaining about Newcastle signing players and shouldn't be allowed to play them when the game is rearranged, he's having a complaint about other things today. What's your views on Ralph, first of all? Has he got a point? And, will Newcastle get a point tomorrow?
I think he knows about it. He just wants to tease. Maybe this is kind of psychotic war against the team. And I think it's going to be turned up against him. And surprisingly, we have the same situation in Saudi Arabia right now with the two teams. It's funny. There is Al-Hilal and Al-Ittihad, two teams. The Ittihad, the one who play with the Newcastle in Jeddah. Ittihad have a player in the Saudi national team join them. So they asked to postpone Al-Hilal and Al-Ittihad. And after 2 months, during these 2 months, that player in particular joined Al-Hilal in transfer window in January. So the irony, they ask the same of Southampton asking, we shouldn't put the players who've been rescheduled the match. It's but that was by the media. But surprisingly, this is the head coach saying that, which is what if some player in Newcastle went to other teams, so we should call him back to play. This is just kind of teasing and kind of like some psychotic war or something, just to play and mess with our heads. That's it.
Do you think it'll be an unchanged team tomorrow, Al-Walid?
Yes, because I noticed, I read Eddie Howe's statement today. He said, I shouldn't change a winner team because this is not the way I give credit to the players. The winning team, they should be rewarded with the continue playing. And if we change, maybe just for tactical reason. And for Murphy, you speak earlier about Murphy doesn't been liked by or maybe some judgment or something. But this is because maybe they want to see Bruno to play, maybe. And we know that St. Maximin, he's not fit as Eddie Howe says. So, but I believe there is no much change, but I believe Bruno maybe have more time this game, hopefully.
Okay, Mitch, how do you see this one panning out regards team selection? ASM, of course, we know is going to be fit. Is he gonna go with an unchanged team again, or is he gonna go with the team that's finished? What's your views?
To touch on that poppycock from bloody Hasenhüttl, What an absolute ridiculous thing to come out with. It just basically, are we going to apply that for anybody who signed anyone in a January window? And like we talked about on Amigos when he first came out with that crap, nothing says I'm not going to be allowed to sign new players in January than complaining about teams that are signing new players in January. And the other guy that joined in with that was Moyes at West Ham, and guess which two teams didn't sign anybody in January? It was just ridiculous. If I was Howe, I would make sure every available player we signed in January is on the pitch tomorrow. I'd make sure they were on the pitch from minute one tomorrow.
Yes.
And I'd have Trippier sat on the bench waving at him every 5 minutes. Let's reverse it. I would have his words up in the dressing room as well. He's given the team talk to Howe. He's given it. And for me, yes, I think I would rotate a few things. But I think bringing Maxi in and bringing Bruno in, I think would be a good idea. Those lads have done so much work, and we've got a lot of, we've got 2 heavy weeks where we've got potentially 3 games in a week twice. So he's going to have to rotate, and we'll look a little leggy towards the end of the game in Brighton. And I don't think it would be a bad time to think about rotating now. Maybe John Joe Shelby's little statement was as much him also saying, I know I've really not done well, but I would like to keep my place in the team, please, boss. And isn't that a fantastic environment to have, brewing in the background? Healthy competition for places. People who want to stay in the team because they're loving what they're doing. Fraser epitomises that. I've never seen that lad smile until Howe came into the club. And now every picture you get of him, he's got a great big daft grin on his face. And that's the different feel. But yeah, I would stick it right up to Southampton tomorrow. Every player we've signed in January, start that team. I'd have Trippier waving at him on the bench and reminding him he's around 2, and just really work them. Because you know what, that coming out with tripe like that just really actually makes a mockery of the game. How do you reset stuff? Are you going to make any manager that's been sacked?
Oh, he's gone. Mitch has gone in. He's gone mid.
The guys in
conversation, Mitch. You've gone there. You've gone. Steve, just about those comments that Hasenhüttl said, we're like Villa, he says, insulting that we only kick the other side. I mean, that was bizarre, wasn't it, to come out with that today?
The guy loses the plot at times, doesn't he? He starts to believe his own publicity. People started talking about him last week as a potential manager for Man United, and he starts coming out with stuff as though he's going to try and play the same sort of mind games that Alex Ferguson could play on Kevin Keegan, or would try to anyway. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, dear me, he wants to grow. He wants to look at his own team. Got absolutely turned over the other week. He wants to start concentrating on that, not on what we are bothered about. But I agree with Mitch in terms of what he's saying about tomorrow's game. We've got a congested set of fixtures, and I think for the first time in Premier League history, we're playing 4 games away from home off the belt. Absolutely crazy the fixtures have turned out, and there was no need for it. The way that they've suddenly forced the Everton game onto us, for example, we could have waited for that. There was no need to do this at this stage of the season, but that's what they've gone for. But I do think that probably after Saturday, and as Mitch says, there was a few leggy looking performances towards the back end. I thought that Fraser, he took a battering. And he's ran his socks off for the last 3 or 4 weeks. I thought, if he's carrying a knock, I'd rather save him for Sunday than risk playing him so early. Shelby, you're right. What Shelby said is that him saying, please don't rest us. I don't want to be rested, which is unusual because most people, if this was last season, would have said that Shelby had been rested for half a season, and still on the pitch, some of the performance he has put in. But again, a revelation since he took the armband. I suppose the question is who takes the armband tomorrow if Shelby is rested. But no, for me, the opportunity's there. You could perhaps bring ASM back in if Fraser's not fit. I don't think Murphy necessarily deserves to be left out. But whatever happens tomorrow in terms of the formation and the team selection, it's because Eddie Howe knows what he's doing.
Yeah, Stu, it's another big game. It's a winnable game, I think, and I think he'd probably go and change again. And I think, I can't genuinely see him making changes. I think he'll go for it again. You don't change a winning team unless there's an injury. I wouldn't change it.
I don't know. Listen to his press conference today. I think he hinted at changes by saying that he mentioned about being unchanged, etc. Don't change a winning team, but then he says then you have to adapt to the people that you played against. And he also hinted at niggles as well. So, I mean, reading between the lines, something that we just talking about previously, about how comfortable we felt with the defence. I think a lot of that credit goes down to the extra legwork the midfield are doing, which hasn't been seen for the past couple of years. The willing, not just the willingness, but the ability to track back and help cover the defence. It's made a great bit, and then Shelby's been a big part of that. And I've given criticism before, simply because he hasn't done what he has been doing, but he did look a bit tired on Saturday, and I don't think it's a bad thing to rotate the squad. So whether he's going to get rotated tomorrow or whatever. But I spoke last week about how it's been great for Bruno. They didn't have to throw him straight in. The need wasn't there to throw him straight in, and he can get to know the league better. He can get to know his colleagues better. He can get to know English better. And the really thing that sticks out for me is when we're talking about who plays in midfield now, is Joelinton plus who. Imagine that at the start of the season. So to me, you've got Joelinton there. Now we have to also take in consideration Southampton have only lost once at home all season. I might be wrong with that, but as I understand it, they've lost only once at home all season. But how many records have we broken in the last couple of months? Today is the 80th day unbeaten. And if Joelinton starts, which I'm sure he will, because he's turned into some sort of like immense person, isn't he? He doesn't look tired. I think Mitch described him as a cruiserweight boxer, didn't you? You said he looked like a cruiserweight boxer. He does, but he's up for the fight, but he's clever with it as well. He won't get bullied. Where in the past, he'd let people bully him, wouldn't he?
That was one of my frustrations with him up front. He's built like a cruiserweight, but he'd go down like a featherweight sometimes.
Yeah. And I really like
how to use that bulk.
Cruiserweight is the new term for brick shithouse. It's fantastic, isn't it?
Just finishing off with you, Steve and George, because I've got to crack on to do the Ukraine show. But Steve, what are you expecting tomorrow night?
Well, I have, like you were thinking, well, when do you change it? But I think tomorrow I'll be tempted to get on the Ralph Hasenhüttl skill a bit more, which is we clearly have, and play Bruno, because he hasn't got a clue how we are going to play. We don't know how we'll play with Bruno or where we'll play with Bruno. But I think I would give Shelby a rest and play Bruno there, and leave the rest the same. I think he hinted today that DSM wasn't 100%, so I can see him probably getting a game on Sunday. But I think of the two games, tomorrow is the most likely when we'll get some points, and I think I would make sure we don't lose the midfield. We know how good Ward-Prowse is in midfield, and I think I would put Bruno in to help an extra bit on there. And we haven't done predictions, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw anyway. If you come back to doing that, but I think we're under his skin, and I hope that we can rattle him a bit more tomorrow.
George, are we going to keep the run going tomorrow night?
I think so. Yes, it'll be a 1-0 or something turgid like that, but I don't care about that. But I think it's likely to win. My instinct is a bit like yours, Steve, is not to change a winning team. However, we've got the capacity on the bench to make a change in the game whenever we want to, using the players that we've got. And I've got to say, this bloke that's their manager, I think his father must have been a guard in Stalag Luft or something like that, because what a miserable sod he is. He even talking about even talking about making we go down on the bus because there was no aeroplanes when COVID was on. I mean, really, is that a sane man? You know. Anyway,
I think we can safely say after tonight's show that George has come firmly off the fence with his views. We're seeing the real George today, folks. Right, quickly round because I've got to go and do this other show. George, prediction?
1-0.
1-0. Steve Wilkinson?
I'm going to stay on 1-1, as I just said.
Stu Penman, 3-1.
Nope, I was going to do 1-1, but then because of the way Ralph went on today, I'll say 2-1 Newcastle.
2-1 Newcastle. Mitch, we'll have the lucky dice on Friday. What's your gut instinct here?
2-1 to us. And the question ahead of Friday, who's going to take what penalties?
Good stuff. Steve Hasty?
2-1.
2-1 to Newcastle. And Al Walid?
3-2 Newcastle.
I think wasn't Wood going to take it when they won?
He was, yeah.
Give
it a Wood.
Wood was heading to the penalty.
I tell you what, I wouldn't like to be the person that tried to take the ball off him.
Definitely not. Lads, been a pleasure. Tune into the Ukraine show. I'm sure you'll have some views on that as well, George. Take care. See you all next Wednesday.
Well, I hope I can comment. Yes.